Good afternoon. My name is Kayla Bradham, Vice President of Community Development with the Sports Philanthropy Network. And on our mentorship panel today, we have David Cohen. David is with Tempus Ex Machina and Corrine Milien from Winning Edge. And our panel is being monitored by our technical intern, Alex. Alex, I want to say on behalf of Sports Philanthropy Network, thank you to you and all of our interns for helping make this conference a virtual success. So, David, if you don't mind, we'll start with you. Will you take just a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending, and thanks to the Sports Philanthropy Network for having me as a speaker for this program. My name is David Cohen. I'm currently the general counsel of a sports technology startup called Tempus Ex Machina. We are based in San Francisco, but I'm in Southern California. I've got over 25 years in the sports industry. My first 9 were on the field as an athletic trainer with the Baltimore Orioles, Montreal Expos, and Boston Red Sox. I went to law school, moved to the front office, and had 9 years in the front office with the Los Angeles Angels, and then 5 years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a C-level executive before moving to the Alliance of American Football, where I helped build a football league from the ground up. And then from there, I went to my current role with Tempus Ex. So I've been involved in just about every aspect of sports, and I've been lucky that I've had the chance to mentor some really great young men and women and see them blossom into some really incredible professionals. So this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. So looking forward to sharing a little bit with everyone today.
Thank you so much, David. Corrine, how about you, please?
Hi, my name is Corrine Milien, and I'm the executive director and co-founder of the Winning Edge Leadership Academy. And I would also like to thank Sports Philanthropy World and Roy for allowing me to add my voice to this conversation. I am a proud product of 2 Haitian immigrants who served 4 years in the Air Force in Germany before attending the Air Force Academy. After that, I went to Bemidji State and served as a student assistant with men's and women's hockey. Then made my way down to Knoxville to serve as the last graduate assistant for Pat Summit, where I thought I was going to be a coach, but learned very quickly that the 1% that everybody strives for isn't realistic, and found my way to ESPN as an event supervisor with 5 of their 40 owned and operated events. While at ESPN, I noticed a lot of the rooms that I was in didn't look like me, and I wanted to do something about that. So I got with my business partner, Maria Taylor from ESPN, and we developed the Winning Edge Leadership Academy, which is a community organization to develop the next generation of women and minorities in sports and entertainment. And it's been something that we've been doing for 5 years now. And I can't even believe it's been 5 years, but we've had the opportunity to influence a lot of people and change their trajectory in the industry.
Corrine, thank you. And for our listeners, again, my name is Kayla Bradham. I'm blessed to have the title of VP of Community Development for the Sports Philanthropy Network. I actually came up through the corporate world in the fitness industry. That's an industry where very few women hit the glass ceiling. And I left it because making an impact in my community became my passion. So I not only work with the Sports Philanthropy Network, I also teach high school English in a Milwaukee school choice school, and really have found my niche in working with women and minorities. So I look forward so much, Corrine and David, to what you have to say about mentorship. Again, thank you so much for being here today. And I'll start with you, Corrine. In what capacity does your organization get involved with mentorship specifically?
Yeah, so it's something that was basically the foundation of our organization. We started in Charlotte, North Carolina with 11 students from HBCUs, and we provided them with a mentor who worked in the industry. So the Hornets or the Bobcats at the time, NASCAR, the Panthers, and we really just matched them up. But actually, after a while, we realized we weren't really yielding the results that we wanted when it came to actual placement in the industry. So we kind of flipped the switch a little bit and started to approach a micro internship where instead of one person being responsible for the journey of one person, we brought together a community of industry professionals that collectively influence our game changers, is what we call them. They don't like to be called kids. And so it's really been for us understanding that, especially in sports and entertainment, it's not about the grades you make, but the hands you shake, who knows you. And we wanted to create opportunities for our game changers through mentorship.
Through, I see it in the sports business world. It really is a small world. My advice is don't burn bridges. You're going to need them, but let's work hard to make sure everybody has a seat at the table. David, how about you?
Well, I'm working with a startup, so it's a relatively small organization right now. But I do a lot informally outside of the organization. We're so remote. I mean, we've got about 18 or 19 people in San Francisco. We've got a couple of them in New York and a few other places. But for us, it's a matter of trying to spend the time to help those that are coming up, follow their own path and giving them guidance. I was lucky that early in my career, I found some really good mentors that have helped me. So I, from an informal perspective, have spent a lot of time doing the same. And it hasn't been a formal program that an organization has had for me, but I've always found people that have always been looking for information, looking for help, some of them within my organization, some of them outside of the organization. And I've been really proud to see what they've done. To me, there's something I'll probably say a few times during the day is if you want to change the world, start with your corner of it. And the way that I would do that is really, one-to-one, and finding someone that you think has so much potential, but maybe hasn't, for some reason or the other, has faced challenges or hasn't had the same opportunities, and giving them the opportunities to grow and helping give them guidance that they have never gotten before. It's amazing when you really watch where they go and see them shine. So that's been my involvement in mentorship.
I appreciate that, David. One thing that you said really stood out to me, and it was that you have had really good mentors yourself. So I guess I'm going to ask both of you, and I'll start with David. What part of your role gives you the most satisfaction as a mentor, David?
Well, it's seeing that light bulb go on. It's sitting there and watching and kind of taking stock at different points during the mentorship period and watching where someone came in and you see them making mistakes, then you see them all of a sudden things kind of click and they move along and they get better. And I've been lucky insofar I've found people, or people have found me, I should say, that have a lot of potential, and we've developed them. And it's as good as it is to see them progress. It's also good when you see within your organization. It's good to see them when they get to the next level. I'm really proud. I've had some of my former mentees that have gone on to some pretty high level roles with teams within the big four leagues. Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, and NHL. An SEC school, a Pac-12 school, a number of different law firms. So it's really nice to see kind of where they go and follow them. One was with NBC now. I'm really proud of her. It's really nice to see when you've watched and that you've played a little part in it and given them guidance, but they've really done the right things to get them to the next step. Maybe you did a little bit to kind of make some tweaks here and there, but to me, it's really rewarding, and watching your professional tentacles go out throughout the industry and watching all the places where you've influenced the world just by starting in your zone and just by natural people getting opportunities, they go someplace else and do great things.
Yeah. And I think for me, kind of what a little bit of what David said, I always remind people, you don't have to build a school in Africa to make a difference. Sometimes it's literally a phone call that you can make. And that's something that, especially with the Winning Edge and some of our mentees or game changers, not just providing the opportunities, but exposing them to a lot of things they didn't even know that they could do. So having a mentee come and say, I want to work X Games, and there aren't many people of color that even know about X Games, and to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, I know you don't know me, but we have a kid that wants to work X Games. And because of my charm, they're able to get that opportunity, and they do their job and they're invited 2 more times to work the X Games. And that's something for me that brings so much more joy than, any award, any accomplishment that I've ever had. And really the biggest thing that we always, celebrate is when our students, a lot of them coming from, low income or being a first generation, kind of thinking, I want to be a coach, I want to be an athletic director, I want to be LeBron James' agent or a GM. And they get the opportunity to, hey, now I'm the social media coordinator for the Washington team, or I'm working with Miami Heat in a capacity that they didn't even know existed. And those are the real changes that we're able to create. And that's how we start to see the leadership in our industry start to reflect the players and fans.
Corrine, thank you. You said something that stood out to me, and that was, using your charm. I'm curious, and I'm going to start with you, Corrine, and then I'm going to ask David to follow up. But how do you use your experience as a mentor to influence the conversations, both within your organization and your community? Let's talk about influence.
Yeah, it's something that, if you know me, that's what I'm about. Most people understand that I wake up every morning thinking about who I can help. And when I go to sleep, I'm thinking about who I'm going to help when I wake up. So it's something that is flowing in my blood. And I think being able to lead by example, every time I'm having a conversation with someone, it's usually like, hey, can you reach out to so-and-so? They reached out to me and had a conversation. They're interested in this. Like, I am that person. Usually if I'm hitting you up and it's not a happy birthday or congratulations, it's can you XYZ for this person? That's something that I am like constantly doing. And it's something that I think brings a lot of people like to be asked to do things. Like, it's a privilege. And sometimes we just have to do that. So I don't mind. I don't care if you are the head coach of Lady Vols basketball. I'm going to say, hey, coach, I need a favor. I got a kid that wants to be a GA somewhere. Can you help them out? And more than likely, I'm going to get a yes. And it's something that if I continue to do that, like David said, work in my corner, that starts to trickle down to everyone else, and they start doing it in their own way as well.
Yeah, Corrine, I agree with you. And something that I'd add to that, and I think you touched on, is the power of positive influence, right? Like for me in Milwaukee, I work with a lot of kids who really don't see a bright future. And if you're not white and affluent, it's a struggle and you have to work twice as hard. And when we talk about, a positive influence and giving kids role models and mentors that they can relate to, that look like them, that came from the same places that they've come from and that have succeeded, then we're creating hope and possibility. And then we can back that up with a plan. So thank you so much. I completely agree with you. David, same thing. How do you use your experience as a mentor for influence?
Well, I mean, I look at mentorship and is part of being a good manager. I'm very, very keen on developing my own skills as a manager, and part of the fundamentals of being a good manager is really caring about your direct reports and wanting to see them develop. And even the higher up you get in an organization, the more you have to be concerned with the big picture of the organization. And part of that is, you know, looking out for the whole organization's people and helping folks that may not be in your department. They may not be your direct report, but you can still help them develop. So, from my perspective, it's very much, part and parcel of working your way up. I mean, there's a couple of different ways, and I use a lot of analogies. And the one that I use very often is that there's two ways to see FARs. One is to build a forest and where all the trees are high, climb to any one of them and look out and see a distance. The other one is to chop down all the other trees so you just look taller, but really it's you're not taller, you're unprotected. So I'm very much into try and grow all the trees throughout the organization everywhere, and that's, to me, is helping people develop, helping people learn. I mean, look, we each come from different backgrounds, different perspectives. I may have a different viewpoint and may be able to share it and help someone learn. But at the same time, one of the things about being a good mentor is that sometimes, actually a lot of times, those mentors teach you a lot of things. I mean, there's things that they've taught me over the years. And it could be something as simple as something new that's going on, a different approach, a different way of thinking, just because they had a different background and they, perceived something different, and it wasn't something that I had thought of, or they had a different approach to solving a problem. And I think it's appreciating the different perspectives that people bring, and giving them the confidence to say, hey, that's a great idea. You may be right out of college and I may be 20 some years out of college, but your idea is better than mine. That builds someone up right there. None of us have all the answers, and part of being a good mentor, a good leader, a good manager is having that humility.
And I'd like to add to that. I think often people don't recognize the benefits that come from being a mentor as well. So many times the kids or young people that I've mentored have created opportunities for me. I could think of my very first intern when I was a G at Tennessee. She's with the Tennessee Titans now, and she's always telling me like, hey, I got this opportunity if you know someone. And so because I poured into her, she's ready to pour into other people. And I think another point for David is not only just making them feel confident, but challenging them as well to think outside the box and to think like, for us, again, we're dealing with people who may not know all the different opportunities in sports. So we challenge them to think about minor league baseball. We challenge them to think about hockey. And that alone can really provide a lot of security and thinking like, hey, I'm not too crazy for wanting to move from Atlanta to Bemidji, Minnesota, because I know my mentor did it as well. So really understanding that there's so much more that you can get out of pouring into someone else.
I totally agree. That's a great point. And another part of being a good mentor that to mention as well is, think of it this way: is every time you hire, you are battling for talent, for top talent. And if you create a track record of developing talent, that's a differentiator for the smart applicant. So, I mean, if you're trying to get the best of the best, they're going to want to say, I want to go and work for someone that's developed people. And if you develop that kind of reputation, it helps you get the best. And granted, you're not going to keep them forever, nor would you want to, but it helps you attract the top people that are going to make your organization better. And if you're talking about selling tickets, then that helps you sell more tickets. If it's, selling sponsorship, if it's making a social change, it's all going to help you fulfill your organization's mission. The better you can hire, the better results that you'll get. But every time you have a success with your mentoring within your own organization, the better that the next crop of people that take that role gets. Because, again, that track record is just so important, especially and the people that you want to hire are the ones that really ask you that question, really look for that track record, because those are the ones that are really gonna go on to do some great things, because they're focused on the right things, not, is this $2,000 or $3,000 more today? Is this the long-term best investment for my career as far as where I'm spending the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's dig a little bit deeper on that, you guys. Sports philanthropy, social justice, and social change are three hot topic buttons in mentorship right now. Sports philanthropy, social justice, social change. Do any of those really resonate with either one of you?
Yeah, for us, obviously, we are representing the minority student athletes on campus. And so, this summer was the word everybody hates, unprecedented, right? And we saw a lot of organizations, a lot of groups come out with their own letter of demands. We saw employees at Adidas, we saw athletes at Texas, we saw NFL players, NBA players, and our own student athletes did the same. And they challenged not only their schools, their coaches, their employers, but they challenged us to really think about how we were going about our mission. As a coach, how are you advocating for me off of campus? If you're bringing me from South Florida to Oxford, Mississippi, are you protecting me off campus? As an employer, are you developing me so that I feel confident to say within this organization, within this industry, as my athletic director or my athletic department, are you accepting money from donors who don't believe in what we believe as an organization? And so they even challenged us, like, if you are taking money from sponsors, it's not just about the check, it's about the opportunities that they're creating for us to grow in this space. So I think we basically told them, you have our platform to say whatever it is that you want to say. And this summer was a great opportunity for them to be heard. And I think a lot more people were listening than they may have been had we not had unfortunate circumstances.
Corrine, thank you. David, how about you? Does sport philanthropy, social justice, or social change really ring a bell for you?
It does, and like Corrine, I'm the son of two immigrants. I mean, both my parents left Egypt as refugees, and they were thrown out of the country, had their citizenship taken away because they weren't exactly the same as the person that was in power. He said anyone that wasn't just like me was a foreigner and had to leave. So I mean, they came here with nothing. So the idea of not wanting to see other people, and they worked hard and were able to provide for us, but the desire to not want to see that happen to anyone else, even though it worked out well for me and my family, is very important to me. So I try and make an effort to in my daily interactions, what am I doing to lead by example to start? What am I doing to help others? I mean, am I empowering others, or am I cutting others down? Am I giving others opportunity or not? And to me, it goes back to that whole idea of the day-to-day, nitty gritty. And it's great that, and I support a lot of the bigger picture initiatives that are out there. But for many, it's not just putting up a sign or coming up with demands as an organization. It's what are you doing as an individual as well? I mean, those things are great. I support them. I think they can really spur a dialogue. But really, where a lot of change happens is the day-to-day interactions. It's are you or are you not giving someone an opportunity? Are you giving them a chance to be heard? And I mean, it goes back to that whole fundamental discussion about the difference between being diverse and being inclusive. I mean, are you inviting someone to the dance? Or are you asking them out on the dance floor to dance? And I think it's got to be the opportunities that you're giving people once they're at the dance. It's bringing them in, but then saying, it's not you just you're here, but I don't have to talk to you. It's no, you're here. Let's get you involved. Let's get you out there dancing. And that's really the day to day. And that's, to me, where my heart lies, is finding those opportunities each and every day to make a difference. And it's one of the things, honestly, I'm really proud that the company that I'm with is we do spend a lot of time looking at diversity, not just with our workforce. When we were out for one of our fundraising rounds, it was really important to us that we had a diverse set of investors. We didn't have the traditional older white male institutional investors. We had some different female investment funds. We had some people of color that invested. And if you looked at our investor group, and it's right on the website, you can see it's a pretty diverse group. So we took diversity to not just the workforce, but really who's investing and who's becoming a part of our organization from the top level. Because again, that's how you break the glass ceiling, is by finding those opportunities and saying, this group, you want to be part, we'll give you a part, but we're also going to find space for some of these other groups that haven't traditionally had the opportunities to invest. Again, that's the day to day.
Thank you so much. And I would challenge all of our listeners to do what DC said, and it's really to find those little moments. Just, David, as you were talking, I just kind of looked back on my day, and I had a conversation about what systemic racism looks like with somebody who didn't even realize their preconceived notion. I had another conversation with one of my coworkers who we were talking about the price of binders, right, for school supplies. And can every student really afford $9 3-ring binders for school? Is that really what we should be asking parents? And, another conversation, just does every child have access to a jump rope or a hula hoop? We're investing so much money into big programs and teams, but where do the little things matter? Can we get a frisbee in every kid's hand? Can we get a baseball? What can we do to make sure that every child has access to equipment? So I think you guys both hit on some huge points. I would challenge our listeners to really think about the little conversations they have in mentorship to see where can we make a difference just by our conversations alone that inspire people to make change, that create hope.
And I think something is the diversity gap, right? The gap between intention and action. A lot of people are well intended, they want to have a diverse board. They want to have a diverse workforce. They want to have diverse conversations, but so often they find reasons why it's going to be hard or an obstacle or something. And we have to kind of step outside of that. And I remember even dealing with our own sponsors and saying, hey, representation is really important for us. And we want to have our dinner of influence where we're inviting industry professionals that look like our game changers. And when you go out and invite 25 people and 20 of those 25 are white and then 5 black men, but we have 10 of the 16 are black women, there's a gap. And you have to recognize that, and you can't dismiss that. You can't say, well, it's diverse because we have white women. Yes, that's diverse, but is that representative of the organization and who we are? And sometimes a lot of people don't want to hear that. They get defensive and they think, well, you're being too harsh. And it's like, well, we have to, because we keep taking half a step forward and 3 steps back every time we allow things like this to happen.
Corrine, I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you. So let's then push back a little bit and say, so how exactly, what's the plan? How do you use that platform then to actually create meaningful change?
Yeah, I think David said it at the top of the conversation, is just starting in your own corner. And that's what we do. We go out and we have conversations with our game changers, and they're leaders on their campus. We have the first female Muslim golfer in collegiate history at Nebraska right now, and she's leading the charge on her campus to have these conversations. And we're giving her the opportunity to come to us and ask us questions, and give her the confidence to go back on campus and ask her athletic department questions and challenge her peers. So I think we just start with the 68 game changers that we've had to go through our program, and making sure that they are leaders on their campus and in their workplace, and that they know that they're supported by a network of industry professionals who have their back.
I agree. I think it's a mentality that fundamentally starts with the statement is that everyone should be able to, and then fill in the blank. When I was with one sports organization, I spent a lot of time dealing with accessibility issues. And, so one of the questions or one of the statements I always say is everyone should be able to enjoy a game regardless of what their needs are. And it should be the same regardless of everyone should be able to do whatever it is, regardless of what unique challenges they have, what their background is. Who they are. Everyone should have that equal opportunity. We should be about removing barriers rather than putting them in place. So that's to me the key is finding ways to make people feel welcome. From a standpoint of accessibility, for people with disabilities, it was a matter of engaging with folks within the disability community, the community of people with a disability, and letting them know it's like, hey, we've got a lot of seats, we've got these different accommodations. People don't generally talk about them or market them. But we found a way to do that. It was kind of a double benefit. It brought them in. It was good business as well. And I think that's something that people forget is by starting with that fundamental, everyone should be able to. There's always that tangential benefit to the organization because you are now tapping into new markets that you might not have had before. But you're also doing the right thing for a lot of people. You're exposing your organization, exposing yourself. And that's definitely a good thing. But start with the statement and work from there, and look at what are the barriers and how can you remove those barriers.
And I think I want to add to that. I think we both kind of said it without saying it, is listen. we're asking the question, what is diversity like, or how can we change and how can we do things differently? Listen to the answer. Don't just ask the question just to say, hey, look, I asked the question, and then go and do whatever you want to do. Like I said, our game changers, we asked them what they wanted and they told us, and we're doing it. If someone in your organization, if you're saying what can we do to increase our diversity in the workforce, and your employer says, hey, where are you getting talent from? Maybe we need to find a new pipeline. Go out and seek a new pipeline. Don't just assume that, well, thank you for that answer, and then continue to do the same thing, because no change will ever occur it's insanity if we keep doing the same thing over and over again and looking for a different outcome, right?
Absolutely. And I think, to say listen and to really get that feedback is so important. And Corrine, made me think, what is the biggest change that we need to make this work? David, what do you think? I'll start with you, and then Corrine, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear your thoughts as well.
To me, the biggest change is probably empowering people to figure out ways of doing the day to day, getting people comfortable with doing it. I mean, there's a lot of people that talk a great game when it comes to mentorship and diversity and inclusion, but those that actually follow through, because a lot of them don't really know where to start. So maybe that's a part of it is create programs, create a dialogue. I mean, find ways. I mean, it goes back to Corrine's earlier point. It's like if you're looking in the same pool, you're going to get the same group of people. It's like where else should we be looking? If you want to find more people within a community, engage with that community and ask them. And that's going back to my earlier analogy with accessibility. We engage with people with a disability to find out what people with a disability wanted, what they needed, and made different changes to make it more welcoming. And as I said, it's like you can't just assume, because I don't go around in a wheelchair, but some people do. So I can never see the world from their perspective. So I need to rely on what they tell me. It's like, well, when I come to the game, this is a problem I have getting concessions, and that keeps me away. Okay, let's see if we can find a way to fix that. Well, you've just, again, removed a barrier, because again, they go through that, 24/7, 365, and have a unique perspective that frankly, I'll never have. I can try and understand it, but I really need to rely on their experiences and I try and put myself in their shoes. But a lot of times when they tell you, a lot of things just a lot of things just snap into place and make a lot more sense. But really, it's about engaging them and really asking the question, and listening too, really listening and taking what they say to heart.
Start, do. Make it happen. Like, don't wait. I think right now it's like the worst time. As a company, you've had to make a public statement to diversity or to mentoring, but we're in the middle of a pandemic and you're having to let people go and all this stuff. So what do? That doesn't mean you don't engage in the community, like David said. Like, okay, you can't hire people now, but how are you engaging diverse candidates now? Are you creating mentoring pipelines now, so that when you are getting ready to hire, you don't have to scramble at the last minute to try to make it happen? Like, just start, do something now. Stop making excuses. I think we're over the excuses. Like, it's getting old. And we can do a lot more if we just start doing.
I appreciate that, Corrine. For me, I think my response would be that we need to actually create hope and possibility. A lot of the people that the things for their parents, this is the way things were for their grandparents, and somehow they just kind of got passed through a system. So it's really looking at that and saying, listen, I know somebody who was in your shoes and they found a way out of your situation. I want you to do what they tell you to do. This person, I'm going to ask them to mentor you. Will you do what they say? And if I can get that commitment that somebody is coachable and they're willing to be mentor, then I know we can create hope, we can create possibility, and then we can create a plan that's going to create change. So I think both of your responses were fabulous. I did ask our technical intern, Alex, to type a question into the chat. So for anybody listening on the panel, I'm going to ask you to chime in. What do you feel is the most effective way to create positive change in mentorship? Is it through education, or outreach? If you are listening to a recording of this panel, again, the question, what do you feel is the most effective way to create positive change in mentorship? Is it through education, training, advocacy, or outreach? David, what do you think?
I think, it's a little bit of all of them. To give you the answer. And I think it depends on the situation. I don't think that there's one right answer. I think that in each situation, there may be a need for one or more. So I think you have to tailor the solution to the right situation. Not to duck the question, but I think they all can be effective. But just like sometimes you need one tool, sometimes you need another tool. I mean, these are one of many tools, and sometimes you need to educate people about educate people something that there's even a problem. At some point, you need to be an advocate. Sometimes you need to reach out to different people. Every situation is different. So I think a part of it is assessing, and it goes back to really that statement everyone should be able to, and then what are the barriers? And then a lot of times you can outreach to people to find out what their barriers are. You can educate yourself by doing that about where those barriers might lie. You can train your workforce and train your staff on helping to make sure those barriers aren't there, and you can be an advocate to removing those barriers. So I mean, it's where in the chain is there an issue? I think will depend, but I think they're all effective. I know that there's one most effective every single time. I think it's certainly much more situationally specific.
For me, from my experience, outreach kind of encompasses all the answers. If you outreach, people are getting educated. If you outreach, people are advocating for each other. If you outreach, people are getting trained. So out for me and our situation in our group, when it comes to mentoring the next generation of leaders in our industry, outreach has been the biggest player, the biggest game changer.
Thank you. And I would say for me, in my experience, it's really been being an advocate and being able to use my platform to say, I support women, I support minorities. If you want me at this event, let me see who else is going to be there. And I don't need to be the speaker at your event. I will come and work behind the scenes, and let's get a speaker that should represent your organization. So for me, it's about advocacy. I'm curious to, catch this 6 months from now and hear what the people who've listened to the recording thought about our answers. But that being said, I guess, where do we need to make change, you guys? Where are we failing in outreach or in training or in education or in advocacy? What do we need to do differently in sports philanthropy?
I'll let you take it away, DC. I feel like you have a lot to say.
I've been the first one speaking. I was going to let you go first this time.
Oh, no. I'm getting thirsty too.
We're both drinking quite a bit. Biggest area of change, I think, is again, it's giving people the tools to make those day-to-day differences, and empowering people to make a difference, empowering people to ask for the difference. I think there's a lot of times that people want to see a change, but I think there's people that don't know how to, or they don't know how to ask for for a change. And I think there's some people that aren't receptive, and I think that's something else we certainly need to change. But I think from my standpoint, that is those day-to-day small interactions that we have. I think that each and every one of us can get better at it. I think it's something that I work on. I'm sure that everyone on this program works on at some point or the other. I mean, that's just part of growing. So, I mean, to me, you change a lot of those small interactions, and things kind of have a, you build a wave and you build momentum, and it ends up being a wave that extends well beyond the few people that are involved in the interaction. So, to me, it's again, empowering people to ask for and make those changes.
Yeah, I think it's going to start with stop coming up with the excuses and start rethinking, and how do we come up with a solution? If the constant response to the lack of diversity is we don't know where to find diverse talent, then we should start having press conferences and statements and all this stuff about how can we help find diverse candidates. I think it's easy to come up with the problem and not the solution. And I think that's how we start changing, and start talking about solutions instead of the problems.
Corrine, that's a great point. As you said that, I thought about so many of the organizations we work with Sports Philanthropy Network, and it's absolutely crazy to see the amount of people who have been hit by COVID, who are funding their nonprofits out of their own pocket, out of pure passion and purpose, right? And they don't have support. They don't have volunteers. They don't have funding. But they're getting, and it blows me away that people are so committed to their values and to their vision. But if we could get them the tools that they need, just imagine how much more successful they could be, right? So I know it's not even on the answer sheet that I asked, but I think from my perspective, it's about tools, and whether that tool be money or an intern or a graphic designer. If we could just empower people with what they need and then leave them alone and back off and say, if it's your vision, it's your mission, go do this. That's what I think we need. That's the one thing that I think, especially in light of COVID, we're missing.
Agreed.
Yes.
So the next thing I would say is, as influencers, as people of influence, what are you guys doing to influence the greatest number of stakeholders in your organization creative?
Yeah, for me, I just try to lead by example. I'm not, you said influencer, that makes me nervous compared to my business partner, Maria Taylor, who has hundreds of thousands of followers on platforms. And I'm like, if I have more than 30 likes on something, I'm like nervous, because I'm like, I don't know this many people. But for me, I think it's just leading by example. And anytime someone is talking to me or they see me out and about, I'm doing what I'm passionate about. I'm doing what they know me to do. And the more I can do that, and the more we can share the stories of our game changers and how we're mentoring and how other industry professionals are doing what we are about as an organization, again, it goes back to the advocacy, it goes back to the outreach. We can do that.
Great. David, how about you? What do you think?
No, I agree. I agree. To me, it goes back to a lot of the things that Corrine mentioned. And as far as being an influencer, I think I may have to find you on a couple of platforms so I can like all your stuff, so you can
no.
a little closer to that 30. But all kidding aside, I think it's that leading by example is a great point, but also actively, standing up and saying, hey, this isn't right, when you see something that's not right, or finding ways, or when someone comes up with the excuse, kind of challenging them and saying that's not right. It's like, we can't find someone. Well, where are we looking? Because if we keep going back to the same places, so to me, it's not being afraid to use your own voice. Use your own voice for someone that doesn't have a voice within that room yet. Be their voice for them. So to me, it's thinking about them constantly, thinking about how can we open up new avenues. It's doing the right things and doing the things that you would want someone to do for you if the situation was reversed. It's working towards that goal. And how are you going to get to that goal? You're having a plan for it.
I think that's a great point, DC. At the end of the day, leading by example is really what mentorship is all about, right? It's showing somebody what good looks like. It's creating that plan for success. So I think it's interesting that you both said that. And it makes me want to ask you, training is needed to help organizations and nonprofits really be able to lead by example.
Um, are you talking in general or our specific organizations?
Let's go your specific organization first, and then we'll branch it out. Fair?
Fair. So ask it one more time. You kind of broke up a little bit there, so I want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Thank you, Corrine. So what I had said is because we're talking about leading by example, and in reality, in the simplest of terms, that is the definition of mentorship, right? So what type of training do we need to make that work?
What type of something do we need to make that work? What was that one word?
Education or training?
I think the education we need is go out and find it. LinkedIn is a great place. People are sharing information all the time. Are you just a passive person that's kind of on there looking at people's feeds, or are you looking at articles, or are you actually clicking and reading the articles that people are sharing about mentorship and how, if for us, when we post something from the Winning Edge page, are you just liking it because we post it, or are you clicking on it, seeing if there's a call to action, or following up, or doing something more than just I think something I've been starting to use is likes don't pay bills. Right? As a nonprofit, you can like our stuff all day long, but that's not helping us right now. We need you to start taking action, be more than passive. So educating yourself on, if you are a fan, if you believe in our mission or in the mission of any organization, what are you truly doing? And again, you don't have to build that school in Africa. You don't have to have a building named after you, but you could do something. There's something that you can start doing right now.
I think that's great. David, I'm going to ask you the same thing. And then I'm going to ask the two of you to please check the chat. I put in one final question, and before I'm curious for you to please share, what is your message for coaches regarding mentorship? What is your message for athletes? What is your message for nonprofits? And I'm going to ask you to end this conversation today with what is your message for the one person who really needs to be inspired? All right, so I will put those in the chat for you guys. I am going to hop off of this to get ready for the next session, and I will be checking back and forth to hear your responses. I want to say thank you both. I was on mute that whole time.
Yep, and I was just smiling, so that's fine.
And if you before you jump off, you may want to make someone else the host real quick, because if you jump off, it'll cut everyone else off. And just looking at being cut off on Zoom a bunch of times, I'm familiar with getting cut off.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I will do that. Thank you so much. What I said is I'm going to be hopping off to get ready for the next session. But in the chat, I will put in, after David responds, what is your mentorship message for coaches, nonprofits, and athletes? So David, after you respond, if you'll both give your perspective on that, and I will see you in the final keynote session, okay?
Oh, great.
Yeah,
thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, first, to answer the question, I think it's probably training people to be better managers, because so much mentorship happens between a manager and their direct report. And I think management is something that everyone talks about, and being a mentor or being a good manager, but I don't think too many people really ever learn how to do it. I think it's one of the fundamental mistakes that we make in businesses, that we take someone that's great at a task and we put them in a role where they're supervising others doing their task, even though doing the task and managing others are two totally different skill sets. So I think definitely manager training is one of the best things that we can do from an education perspective, because I think if you train someone right as far as being a manager, a lot of other issues end up going by the wayside. It's there's a great podcast and that I listen to called Manager Tools, and one of the hosts has a great quote, is that focus on behaviors, because behaviors don't discriminate. Anyone can demonstrate the behaviors that lead to success. And I think when you train someone as a manager with that fundamental mindset, a lot of other things just fall into place. So to me, it's and that goes back to that day to day. If you've got a good manager, they value their people, they bring them up, they mentor them, they coach them, they give them good feedback, and they help them develop. And that's what it's all about. It's focusing on the behaviors that are going to help them succeed in the longer term.
Yeah, for me, my mentorship message for all coaches, nonprofit organization, other athletes is go into it with the mindset of, I want this person to become a mentor as well. The more people we can start getting to think about, how can I pour into others? And again, you kind of do that by leading by example and providing examples, but creating more mentors. That's always my goal. I want our game changers to go out to their teammates, because mentorship isn't always old and young, right? You could be a peer mentor. You can, I have people that are younger than me that I would consider in a mentoring capacity. And so the more people that we create that are going to be leaders and mentors is what our goal is. It's not, and I said leaders, and I really should have just said mentors. We want to create more mentors because it's not, there's no book for it. There's nothing there's no secret sauce. It's just about creating opportunities and being a support system a lot of times. And so the more people we can do, the more people that are doing that, the better our world will be, for sure.
No, I agree. And as far as my mentorship message, breaking it down for coaches, I would say to coaches, realize the influence that you have, and that the players, the athletes that you're coaching are going to look at you, and just because the inherent position that you have, they're going to follow your lead, follow your example. So realize that the impressions that you leave will last a long time. So keep that in mind as you go through and you coach them. For athletes, realize that you have an opportunity to make a positive change. And it's really good to see athletes speaking up and saying what they feel, and not being afraid to open up their mouths and speak on the platform that they have to make meaningful change. I mean, look, other folks do it in other industries, and they never get told, hey, stick to being a CEO, stick to being a CFO, stick to being an accountant, and don't worry about that. Well, if that's the case, then we would just have politicians that are doing everything, and nobody would have any say, because it would be those politicians that we all don't like that are doing things. So use your platform, and don't be afraid to use your platform. Yeah, there's going to be some folks that try and mute your message, or spew venom at you. Don't listen to them. You've got just as much of a right to speak up as everyone else, and you've got a platform, and use that platform to make the change that you want to see. And for nonprofit organizations, be true to your mission and find ways to make change. You have the opportunity to take a lot of those daily interactions and aggregate them to do some really amazing things. So realize what that mission is, do things the right way, work hard, engage your volunteers, and make the world a better place.
I'm going to add one thing, and then we're going to get off. For the athletes, if you want a mentor, do the work. If you want help, do the work. Don't think help is going to just come to you because, oh, you're good at this, or because you said it. Like, we shouldn't have to chase you. If we are creating opportunities for you, make sure you're taking advantage. I think that's something, and I don't know, I don't want to sound too like the old person on the get off my porch type thing, But I think often I get messages and we see young people post on social media that they want help, or they're looking for a mentor, and they send that email and they say, hey, can I find some time to meet with you? They meet and you give them homework and they don't follow up or they don't do it. And it's like, hey, I'm good. I got a job. I'm doing what I already want to do. So you're the person that came to me and you wanted to help. So what are you doing to kind of help yourself? And I'm glad a couple of things that you said made me want to end with that. So I appreciate the time that we had sharing the screen and sharing ideas. I don't think this will be the first time our paths cross. And I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a blast getting to know you and chatting, and hopefully we'll stay in touch. And attendees, I hope that you found this meaningful as well. It's always a good discussion to have, and it's something that everyone should be thinking about constantly. Is what am I doing to make this world better when I leave it than it was when I found it? And that's kind of picking your head up and looking around and assessing every so often. So hopefully this is good inspiration for some people that watch this either live or video recorded later.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks. We'll see everyone soon.
See ya.
See ya.